All right, fantastic. Yeah, I think I remember now. So we have, okay, so yeah, we're at the bottom of page 112 here in these books. If you have, if you want to follow Rabbi Stein's commentary on the Tanya. All right, so just to summarize very quickly. So we were speaking about the three intellectual attributes, focusing first on the first two, Chokhmah and Bina. Chokhmah being that spark of wisdom, and Bina being the ability to develop that spark of wisdom, to see if it has any validity, and at the same time also to develop it from different perspectives, to almost be critical about that spark of wisdom, so that we can make sure that it has, again, some validity, and at the same time it can then translate to that. You were speaking about Chokhmah and Bina also as two mates, as two inseparable mates, as Rabbi Stein was saying, that they have to go together. In a way, Chokhmah and Bina also have their own tools for development. Chokhmah is a complete tool of humility. In order to receive that spark of wisdom, one needs to be completely in tune with Hashem. Otherwise, you're blocked from receiving anything. Otherwise, arrogance blocks you. You need to have that ability to set yourself aside, or as he calls it, bitul, self-nullification, in order to be able to receive the wisdom from beyond. Otherwise, you're blocked. Bina, on the other hand, needs some type of it's not complete humility, but you need some type of intelligence from within to decipher it, to develop it, to understand exactly what the spark of wisdom is, and then to somehow find a way to translate it into action, which is really what that is about. So those are the three intellectual attributes, really, very briefly. Let's continue, or the first two that we're about to speak about. But let's continue here at the bottom of page 112. Does anyone want to read? Does anyone, Heidi, why don't you read?
I'll be glad to read. Are we at the when a person meditates or before that?
So, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. When a person meditates upon God's greatness and achieves profound comprehension of it, this inevitably triggers an emotional response. To deeply contemplate and immerse itself exceedingly is no easy task. But when a person does achieve a true understanding of God's greatness, he can be assured that he is midot. His capacity for love and awe will follow suit. The same is true regarding negative contemplations. If a person is constantly confronted with corporeal temptations, this inevitably stimulates desire and transgression. For such is human nature. When there is a persistent awareness and contemplation, emotional responses arise automatically. The problem is that, in practice, envisioning the temptations of this world is far easier than envisioning the greatness of God. The famed
continue.
The famed grandfather of Shapula used to say, "Master of the universe, you have not made the world very well. You have put the temptations of the material here before our eyes and given men to learn about the Gehinom in the book of Reshit Chokhmah.
Right.
I swear by my beard that you had done the reverse. If the I don't know how you say it, Gehinom was placed before.
Hell, right.
What is it?
Gehinom means hell.
Oh, Gehinom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. If the Gehinom was placed before our eyes in the temptations described in that book, no one would sin.
Right. Okay. So just there's two parts here to this beautiful commentary. First of all, I have to say it's so apropos to these days, to the coronavirus era that we are each experiencing. And speaking of meditation, I think Amy, who's here on the call with us, can certainly shed much light on this subject. But it connects to this big idea of how can we command people to love God. We say this every day in the Shema, Vehavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha. Think about this. God is telling us, love me, okay? Now, can I command someone to love something that they don't love? I can't tell my children, hey, I want you to love tomatoes. They don't like it. They don't like it. If they're not attracted, I have a child who hates bananas. Can I command them to love bananas? Can I command someone to love another person? Forget about food. Another person that they simply cannot click with at all. So how can God command us to love? Isn't love very limited to the personality that you have, to the way you see the world, to the general perspective you have on people? Why is God commanding us to love? And the basic answer is because really God is a part of us. It's not like God is external, like that banana or like that person we can't love. God is a part of us. And the only reason we may not love God is because we haven't yet meditated deeply enough about God. He's a part of us. We haven't meditated deeply enough about that part in us, that soul that we have, that is, again, part of God. Now, so how can we come to love that part of us? It's a part of us, so we don't have the problem that we have with bananas, with those people. Also, it's a part of us. How can we come to truly love God? By meditating on God, seeing God within us, seeing God within our world. When you meditate on a beautiful mountain here on the Camelback Mountain in Scottsdale, that will lead to this awesomeness that you'll feel, and that eventually will arouse the love towards God. Through meditation, you can achieve much. And again, Amy can expound on this if you wish, Amy. But through meditation, you can arouse emotions. You know, it's interesting because we think sometimes it's the opposite. If I love, then I'll be able to connect. That's, by the way, how we approach dating. It's just terrible. Oh, if I go to a bar and I click with someone and something in my heart will spark, then I'm sure I can develop this relationship, not just through the heart and through the mind. But it works the exact opposite. It's when the mind can truly understand something, that's when the emotions arouse. And then that's when also those emotions are healthy emotions because they've been directed, calculated, analyzed by the mind. If it's the opposite way, the heart doesn't know how to think. The heart just feels. So if I just feel something, it might be a completely wrong feeling. And then I'm going to base my decisions on what I felt, thinking that my heart can then convince my mind. That's so crooked. The only way to truly love is going first through the mind, first through meditation, because the mind has that ability to filter things, to understand things in ways that the heart can never do so. So you have here, I think the recipe in a way to, I'm just changing things here, configuration, but you have the recipe on how really to approach life, not just life, but I think to approach God, to approach anything we may have. First the mind, and then the heart. Now, what's interesting is this, and I said I think this is very apropos, because it shows you the power of the mind. When the mind focuses on positivity, then emotions of positivity will be aroused. When the mind focuses on negativity, emotions of negativity will arouse. I think it's very apropos because, again, we can be dwelling on this COVID-19 and all of the negative effects that it has. And it does have negative effects. And yes, we do have to be careful. And yes, we do have to follow the guidelines of the CDC and the health experts and so on and so forth. But to be completely obsessed with it, to focus only on that, to have no ability whatsoever to say to ourselves, you know what, yes, I'm going to leave the news for a second. I'm not going to go too much on social media and read about everything that this COVID-19 has. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength. But if we follow here the words of the Tanya, we'll understand that that also can impact our lives one way or the other. If we focus, if we're obsessed about it and all the negativities, that's eventually the way we'll feel throughout the day. If we can separate ourselves from it a little bit and say, you know what, we recognize that the mind is so powerful. And if we focus too much on negativity, we'll feel negative. So let's start focusing on positivity and then feel positive. And that's the way really the heart will respond and the rest of the day will be like. That's the power of the mind. Amy, I want to hear your perspective out of everyone here, because you're the meditation teacher, the yoga teacher. What do you think about this idea that you cannot allow, like we approach so many things, right? Dating and so many other things. We can't allow the heart to be the leader and the mind to follow. Quite the opposite. The mind has to be the leader, and then the heart will follow.
I have so much to say, I'm not sure where to start.
Hey, whatever comes to mind.
So we're complex beings, and we've been given the gift of a mind and a heart, and we've been given the gift of language, right? It really separates us from all the other animals or all the other beings, that we have language.
Mm-hmm.
And language, the way I see it, it's like both a blessing and a curse, because we can get caught up in our stories, right? So we don't always understand exactly what's happening. We know what the thoughts in our mind are telling us are happening, which is what the yogis call delusion. And one of the ways we separate from the delusion is through meditation, so that we can see clearly. We're trying to dip below the thought line, below. It's what, if any of you know Martha Beck, it's what Martha Beck refers to as wordlessness. Right? When we meditate, we're coming to, in yoga, they talk about the 5 koshas of the body. There's 5 sheaths of the body, and there's the mental body, but there's these other bodies too. There's an energetic body and a physical body. And when we connect on those different levels, those different bodies, we connect beyond a place of words.
Right.
Does that make sense, Rabbi?
Yes, absolutely. That's right. Yeah, before you allow words, before you allow anything to take place, you first have to analyze everything through the mind, meditate and contemplate. And then the rest can follow, right?
So, yeah, so if anyone's ever, I was going to say, it's what the yogis strive for, but they strive for it without striving, right? What we're looking for is that deep connection, that really, beyond the place of words. Right. So it's our mind, but it's our heart. It's like God gave us both, and we want them both to be working together. And when we connect on that level, all our suffering goes away. Right. And when we connect on that level, that's what we call our true nature. Like we're perfect. We're divine beings. When we connect with that divinity, all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt subsides.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. I think, I'm reminded just to maybe make this point that Rabbi Stans is making here about the importance of the mind and the power of the mind. So I'm just reminded of a cute story. I think it was by the CEO of Google, Sundar, what's his name? Sundar Pichai or whatever. What's his name? Does anyone know? The CEO of Google writes about this in one of his books, that he was at a breakfast place not too long ago, and he notices these 2 ladies in front of him, and one of them all of a sudden jumps up. And he doesn't understand why. He looks to see what happened. Maybe something terrible happened. But all that had happened is that a fly landed on her shirt, and she couldn't stand flies. Finally, the fly goes away. She sits down. A few minutes later, the other lady jumps up. That lady had the same fly land on her. So they were hysteric. They called the waiter. The waiter came, saw the fly on the table, was able to trap it, then get rid of it. I think it was a fly or a bee or something like that. And Sundar Pichai, or whatever his name is, the CEO of Google, writes, that's when I learned the difference between reacting and responding. Those ladies were reacting. The waiter came, how come he didn't freak out? Because he was responding. And in a way, what's the difference between reacting and responding? Exactly what Rabbi Steinmetz is saying here in a very simple way. When you react, you allow your heart to take the lead. When you respond, you allow your mind to take the lead. What's happening? Let me analyze the situation. It's only a fly. Fine. So, okay. So I'll take care of it. And let's focus on that which is truly important, on breakfast and our bonding. But to react is really not the Jewish way, because it doesn't allow the mind to take the driver's seat. I think, again, it connects very much to our era, to what we're experiencing each and every day. Not only should we focus on positive things and learn how to separate ourselves from all the news from time to time and from all the social media, but also you know, we can focus on the coronavirus and react to it and say, gosh, this is terrible. Who knows? I'm going to be next. I'm not going to be next. Someone else is going to be next. Or you can say, you know, let me respond and let me focus on the blessings that are happening right now, on the bonding that is happening between people, on the ability to develop a hobby because I have the gift of extra time all of a sudden, or whatever it may be. That's responding. That's not reacting. That's using the mind as the Tanya wants us to use it. Now, unfortunately, and as Rabbi Stans puts it here, very often, you know, what's in front of us is negativity or temptations, or as he called it, right? Or, temptations, sin is in front of us, as he calls it here. That's the way God created the world. So we are automatically almost absorbed by those, and it's harder than for us to use the mind in a profound way. I think, by the way, I'm sorry I keep going back to the COVID-19, but I think that's one of the great blessings of the COVID-19, that up until now, our society was so caught up with all sorts of distractions that we really never had time to truly think, to say, you know what, maybe life is about much more than what I am seeing on the surface. Maybe it's about what I am not seeing that's not on the surface. Maybe it's really about those human connections. Maybe it's really about connecting to God in a way maybe I've never connected before, meditating. Maybe it is about my children, my value system. Maybe that's what it's about. Those things are intangible. They cannot be seen. My children maybe, yes, but the love that I have towards them, all those things are intangible. Maybe that's what it's about. Unfortunately, though, God created the world in a way that only the tangible is seen. And therefore, the tangible sometimes, or very often, distracts our minds and does not allow it, the mind itself, to truly take place, to sit in the driver's seat. And I think that's, again, that's a great blessing to not, it enables us really to connect to that which we maybe never have connected before, to the unseen, to the internal, to that which the mind can maybe sense, yet it has never been given the opportunity to analyze, to connect to in a profound way, to meditate on, to contemplate on. That's really one of the great blessings we are experiencing these very days. I think, by the way, that's why, and we've said this so many times, but that's why the most important prayer in Judaism is the prayer of the Shema, right? To listen, because we don't believe in seeing. What is in front of us, what our eyes see, is not what we should be thinking about. It's what we can listen to from within the world, from that which is in front of us. We can connect on a deeper level. Then we'll be able to truly live a meaningful life. But that's really what Rabbi Stans is saying. Now, of course, the Spoiler Zeta, by the way, the famed grandfather of Spoiler, the Spoiler Zeta was named Spoiler Zeta because I think Spoiler in Yiddish means bear. And the story about him, just as a way of introducing him to us. But the Spoiler Zeta was a man who was very devoted to Jews in general, to his community in particular. He once heard that a Jew was thrown into jail because he hadn't paid his rent. And if I remember the details correctly, he went and he confronted the landlord and he said, please, this Jew has a wife, he has many children, he needs to continue to provide. They are falling into poverty, you have to release him. And the Spoiler Zeta said, the landlord said to the Spoiler Zeta, the only way I will release this Jew out of his pit is that if he tonight joins my party and sings in front of us, dressed up like a bear. But he better not just sing, he better also dance according to the rhythm of the music that we will have. That will be a very hard rhythm to follow. If he can do that, then, and follow all the instructions and dance according to the rhythm, I'll release him. The Spoiler Zeta knew that this man could not do this. So he said to himself, I'll do it instead of him. He dressed up like a bear and showed up to the landlord's party. And the landlord had all of his friends. And yeah, they see this Jew dressed up like a bear, of course, thinking that it's the man in the pit, in prison. But it's the Spoiler Zeta who wanted to lower himself. He wanted to free this man. So he was ready to lower himself to that level. He danced to the rhythm of those those terrible people. And it was a very hard dance, but he was able to do so until he finally collapsed from the dance. And the landlord said, you know what, you did a good job, I'm releasing you, not knowing that, of course, was the Shpoile Zayda. But that's how this man was released. Ever since, the Shpoile Zayda was known as the Zayda, or the grandfather of Shpoile, of bear, because he dressed up like a bear to free another Jew. By the way, this again, this is just a background to what the Shpoile Zayda is about to say. But this music, this melody that they had that night, is a melody that has become a Hasidic nigun. And you can look it up. It's called Hop Kozak, because those were the words of the melody. Hop Kozak, like the Cossacks should hop and dance and jump, like the Shpoile Zayda needed to do. It's a beautiful melody. But by the way, Avram Fried, who's the king of Jewish music, sings it. He'll be with us on Tuesday morning at 11:30 a.m. via Zoom. We can ask him to sing Hop Kozak if you'd like. But it's a beautiful nigun, it's a beautiful Hasidic tune, and it comes from the Shpoile Zayda story, the Zayda who dressed up like a bear, and ever since it's been called the Bear Zayda. But he complained to God once. He filed a complaint, which teaches us, by the way, that we too can file complaints, right? If we feel down, if we feel that God is being unjust, we are allowed to file complaints. We're allowed to shout at God. We're allowed to say, this is not right, God. I don't understand you. But in any case, he filed a complaint saying, God, it's not right. Because what you've placed in front of our eyes is materialism, distractions. If you had placed God in front of our eyes, souls in front of our eyes, spirituality in front of our eyes, I promise you, we would have behaved completely differently. We would have known how to truly connect to you. But, so again, human nature is immediately absorbed by that which he sees. But we are asked in Judaism to not be absorbed by that which we see, by the external, but rather go through it, dig through it with the power of the mind, and then connect to the Shema, connect to the internal, connect to the soul of everything, which is much harder because that's not what we have in front of us. But it's doable, getting through the power of the mind. That's what Rabbi Stans is saying here. Okay. Does anyone want to add to this? Otherwise, we'll continue with the rest of the words here of the Tanya. If yes, then you can unmute yourself.
Rabbi, could you just tie it into the animal soul and the divine soul battles that go on?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that the channel to the divine soul is the mind. That's how we can access the divine soul. Why so? Because as we said, the mind is able to analyze, the mind is able to sift between the good and the bad, between the animalistic and the divine. And when we use the mind, especially to meditate on God, to meditate on how Ein od milvado, as we say each and every day during our Aleinu prayer, that there's nothing else but him, then we'll also be able to connect to him and arouse all these good emotions towards him, and in a way live in a state of consciousness that is completely divine. So the soul is sparked by the mind. Fortunately, I would say the animal soul, the divine soul is sparked by the mind. The animal soul is probably sparked by the heart, because the heart that does not think, that does not allow the mind to take the driver's seat. If I see a temptation and I fall for it, why did I fall for it? Because I didn't think. That the heart wanted it and the heart acted upon it. That's why, by the way, the Talmud says, it's a fascinating line if you want to analyze it philosophically. But the Talmud in Masechet Sotah, in the Tractate of Sotah, says, then Ein Adam over Avera ela mitoch ruach shtut, that the only reason a person sins is because a spirit of folly has entered him. Now, what does this mean? That's because a man was not thinking when he was sinning. If you were thinking, if you would be able to stop the spirit of folly and do the opposite. What's the opposite of folly? Wisdom. If you were able to act wisely, you wouldn't have sinned. The only reason you sinned is because you weren't thinking. You allowed the spirit of folly to overcome you. So again, the mind is what stops us from sinning and what enables us to connect our divine soul. The heart, unfortunately, does not. It wants to act immediately. I think that's maybe one of the great differences between human beings and animals. Animals act instinctively. Animals act only with the heart. While human beings, thank God, have the capacity to think. And by thinking, we're also able to act more divine, not to allow our instincts and our impulses to control ourselves, to respond again, not to react. That's the power of the mind. I will say this, I think that if you want to analyze this line, I think there's so much to be said about this line in the Talmud, that a man doesn't sin unless a spirit of folly has overcome it. But if you want to analyze this line, I think it reflects one of the great ideas of Judaism that we've mentioned many times, and that is that we are inherently good. But spirits of folly come in between us and our inherent goodness. But if we were able to really think about who we truly are, the divine beings that we are, then we wouldn't sin. It's just those spirits of folly that come from the outside, those temptations that overcome us, that enable us to sin. That's why the word for sin in Hebrew is not sin. Sin is actually a very Christian word. Sin implies impurity. It connotes almost desecration. But that's not what sin is in Hebrew. Sin in Hebrew is chet. Chet in Hebrew also means lehachti. You still use this word in modern Hebrew. Lehachti means to miss the mark. That's what sin means. Because when you sin, you're just missing the mark. You're deviating from your inherent path of goodness. You've deviated because of the spirit of folly. But if you were able to be a thinking person and say, 1 second, where is my path? Who am I truly in essence? And what am I supposed to do? Then you wouldn't sin. Then those spirits of folly would be overcome completely. And you would remain true to who you are. You know, 2 days ago, the 2nd of Nisan was the yortzeit of Rabbi Shalom Beer, who was Tanya's great-grandchild, I think. And he too was a Chabad rabbi, Rabbi of Lubavitch. And one of his expressions was, if I remember correctly, was that a person should always think 3 things to himself. What can I do? What must I do? And am I doing it right now? What can I do? What are my skills? What has God given me? What can I do as an individual? What must I do? What must I do right now to fulfill my calling? And am I doing it right now? Now, these are thinking questions. They're not questions of the heart, questions of the mind. And therefore, if one knows how to use that mind, the power of the mind, then one is able to answer these questions and eventually maybe answer them well and fulfill thereby his life purpose. But again, that's to answer your question, Heidi.
Thank you.
To the mind and the heart.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's Amy here.
Hi, Amy. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for all you're doing here. It's just sustained us in such beautiful ways.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, in the Torah portion this week, we were talking about, the Torah directed was mainly about sin. Is that the same sin that you were talking about just now? Or
right.
Are we? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the word that's used also. Nefesh ki techta. So when a soul will sin, same word, chet, deviate, to miss the mark. Absolutely. That's right. By the way, it's interesting that you mentioned this because, so what's the correction for sin? So we would bring a sacrifice, but today you don't have sacrifices. So what's the correction for sin? So the whole idea of bringing animal sacrifices in a deeper level, of course, is that you are sacrificing not an animal per se, because you don't have that today. We don't have a Jerusalem temple to bring those animals to, but you're sacrificing your animalistic desires. You're saying to God, I'm not going to act by being directed by my heart anymore, those animalistic instincts. I'm sacrificing those. From now on, I'll be a thinking person. That's the sacrifice that we are bringing today. When we sin, we say to ourselves, you know what? Let's stop being animals. Let's sacrifice those animals and those instincts, those heart impulses that they bring. Let's start thinking. That's the idea of sacrifice. By the way, that's why the word for sacrifice in Hebrew is korban. It's a very different one than sacrifice. Sacrifice really is mesirut, maybe, when I devote myself. But the word that is used for sacrifice is not sacrifice. Again, a complete mistranslation that so many of those in the Torah that deviate our minds from the right attention we should have to the verses and to the content of the verses. But sacrifice in Hebrew means, korban comes from the word karov, which means to come close. And basically any type of sacrifice, of true sacrifice, is my decision and my actions towards coming close to God. I'm saying to myself, enough. I've been away from God's path for so long, or for not so long. And now I'm sacrificing my animalistic instincts. Why? My animal. Why? To come close. Each time a person makes a decision to come close to God, or really to come close to his inner self, to his essence, to his divine soul, then he's sacrificed. And then he's bringing a sacrifice. That's what korban means. That's what sacrifice means. Then he's coming close to God. So it's not like you have to, like, I don't know, other people, other religions think that you have to I don't know, kill yourself, God forbid, or whatever it may be. But a sacrifice means, in Judaism, it doesn't mean that crazy undertaking. Not at all. In Judaism, what sacrifice means is that you are saying to yourself, right now, I want to come close to God. Right now, I'm going to take 45 minutes to study the Tanya. That's a sacrifice. No, you don't do anything grandiose, but you came close to God by devoting those 45 minutes to God. That's a sacrifice. It's not the sacrifice. It's not what you'll find in the dictionary. But any act of coming close to God is a sacrifice in Judaism. Karov, it's coming close. That's what korban again means. Okay.
That was really helpful, because I had trouble as I was reading the Torah portion, understanding what relevance it has. The sacrifice of the animals and the descriptions, what relevance it has to us now, and I see it. Thank you.
Right. No, of course, absolutely. No, thank you. Okay. All right. I want to add one more thing, and it's interesting also, again, speaking of the Hebrew language, it's so rich, and so many words with so many meanings, so many multiple meanings. So going back to the heart versus the mind, so the word for mind in Hebrew is what? I mean, there's multiple words, but there's the word sechel, right? Which means the brain or the mind. Now, the word for heart in Hebrew is
Lev.
Lev. So what's the Kabbalists point this out? It's beautiful. Sechel means shekol. It's the exact same letters. Shekol. Shekol means that everything is in it. If we're able to lead lives with our mind in the driver's seat again, then we'll have everything. Shekol. Lev, if you switch the letters around, comes from the word bli or bal, which means nothing, without anything. If you are a person that leads your decisions only through the heart, through impulses, through instincts, then you'll have nothing. If you use the mind, you'll have everything. If you use the heart, you'll have nothing. That's the power of the Hebrew language again. It's really special. But we ought to think about this, really. I mean, I know that we don't live in a culture that thinks so much. We're all about instant gratification and what can I do now? Like my students, my middle school students, love to use the words. What's that acronym? YOLO. You only live once. YOLO. YOLO. You only live once. You ever heard of that before? YOLO.
Yes.
So yeah, if I have this temptation, I only live once, let me do it. But YOLO is the exact opposite of thinking. So, and then thank God we have the Tanya to emphasize this point for us. Okay, let's continue a little bit more, of course, unless there are other comments.
I got a comment.
Yes, Amy, please.
When my kids, I think were in preschool, I had a preschool teacher say to me, there are no bad children, there's just bad behavior.
Oh, very good.
And it feels the same way for all of us as God's children.
Right.
We're inherently good. Our divinity is perfect. it's our behavior,
That's right.
right?
Beautiful.
And our behavior comes, if we don't control it, comes from our reactions.
Right.
This is what the
Very
yogis, explain also. And the way we get to choose how we respond if we slow down enough to look at how we respond. Like we have to look at ourselves in order to get there. And
right.
One other little piece on that, if you take the word react in the English language and you reorder the letters, you get the word create.
Oh.
So either we react or we create.
Very good. Very good. Speaking of the English language, it reminds me, that's what responsible means. So if you take the word responsibility, as many of you know, and you divide it into two, what's being responsible? Responsibility is responsibility, that I have the ability to respond. If I don't have the ability to respond, then I'm irresponsible. But that's that. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for that. Speaking of children, I want to welcome, I've seen them now for quite some time on the screen, Zev. Hello, Zev. Zev Kosman is with us. Hello.
Hello, Rabbi.
Hi, Zev. How are you? I'm so happy to see you.
Rabbi, we have my cousin, Zachary Charles, is tuning in from Baltimore. He's a college student who had to come home. He was studying abroad in Argentina, in Mendoza, and he was brought back home because of the COVID-19 crisis, but he's tuning in right now from Baltimore. He's 21 years old.
Oh, that's so nice. Zachary, it's so good to have you. You're always welcome. And a cousin and a friend of the Quasmans is a cousin and a friend of ours.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right, we're reaching the end of our time, and I have to switch to the other Zoom for the virtual synagogue, but I will end if we're already speaking about children. And I think, Amy, you touched upon this a little bit, but Pablo Picasso famously was asked if he thinks that all children are artists. And he responded, of course they are. But the big question is if they can remain artists once they grow. And I think that that's a very powerful line. Yes, we're all inherently good. We're all children with that purity and innocence. The question is if we can remain with it once we grow. How so? The Tanya already told us right now, with the power of the mind. By really thinking and contemplating and meditating and connecting to that which we do not see, much more than to that which we do see, then we can remain artists as we grow. All right, Shavuot Tov, everyone. Again, please visit our cbtvirtualworld.com.
Wait.
Find all my classes there. Yes, Robin.
Where do you get the book?
This book right here.
Yes.
Good question. It's out of print. It's been out of print for quite some time. But you know what? I am going to try and get a PDF of it, the PDF version of it. And then maybe next week, next Sunday, we'll be able to share the screen. If God forbid Mashiach won't be here, because if yes, then we'll be learning this book in Jerusalem, in the temple. Otherwise, I'll have a PDF.
Okay.
Even better. I'm going to find a PDF and then we'll share the screen. All right. Shavuot
Thank
Tov,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.